Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to another edition of River City Presents. We're excited to have you here with us this evening, and we're excited in a few minutes to present our special presenting guest, which is going to be Virago Spirits. With everything that's going on, we're not able to hold our events as current. We do have some scheduled for later in this year that we're hoping to hold, but at the moment, since we can't bring you the events and since we can't be with you in person, we have really missed being able to present some of the amazing distilleries and breweries and wineries and all these small businesses from around the Commonwealth. So we've set up this program, River City Presents, to bring them to you on your phone or in your living room, wherever you may be, give you a chance to see some behind the scenes action of how they operate. We're going to be doing some live tastings this evening. So if you don't have a bottle of Virago Spirits on you, then press pause or save this video and run out to the ABC store. Or you can actually order directly online from Virago, have that shipped to you, and you can do the live tasting with them. Virago Spirits is located in Richmond, Virginia, in the well-known Scott's Addition area. They were established in 2018. They're most well known for their rums, some of which we're going to get a chance to take a sneak peek at tonight. But they've got some amazing gin products as well, and some well-known custom cocktails that are known in the Richmond area and throughout the state. So Luke, we've got Luke with Virago Spirits with us tonight. Luke, how are you doing?
Doing great, Brian. Thanks for having me. Lovely to about to start cracking some bottles and sipping with everybody.
Absolutely, we're looking forward to it. So if you could tell us a little bit about Virago Spirits.
Sure. So here at Virago, we do what we call forgotten spirits. So basically, we focus on rum, gin, and brandy. All of our brandies are still aging in the back since brandies take a few years to age. We use a Calvados. We're using local apples out near Albemarle County, and it's an apple and pear brandy is what we've got back there aging right now. We've done a few of those. We call them forgotten spirits because a lot of times when people think of rum, they think of like a Captain Morgan's or maybe something they had in college that was very syrupy. Our rum is the complete opposite of that. They're sipping rums, aged rums. There's actually no sugar in our rum at all. So when you have like a black rum or a spiced rum, those rums have flavor, caramel coloring, syrups added. All of the flavor and color with our rum is just coming from the barrel. So goes into the barrel clear, and as you know, I don't know if people know, but with aging in the hot and humid seasons, it expands into the barrel, then contracts in the winter, in and out, and that's what pulls all the flavor from the wood, and then that's when you get the darker brown colors, much like you would a whiskey or even when you do an añejo, tequila, things like that. Same process.
That's something else. With making it without the sugars, does that require a special process, or are you just flat out skipping that ingredient?
So when I say no added sugar, all rum does come from sugar cane, but once you distill it, there's actually no sugar left. And then the rums I was talking about earlier, then they add sugar after distillation. And there are even some brands out there that are still making very delicious rums with added sugar. It's just a different style. Here at Virago, Brad, the owner, is on keto diet, so he doesn't have any added sugar stuff. And the other reason is we just prefer, there's nothing wrong with an added sugar rum, but we prefer the natural flavor from the oats. So in addition, and we'll go through our rums later, you'll see we also have different finishes. So we get barrels in from different regions of Europe and then finish the rum in that barrel to pull out different flavor. So
it's tasty and I guess good for you, or at least better for you, right?
A little less of a hangover, you know?
I like that. Okay.
We can still power through it anyways.
Well, that's fantastic. Well, you're there at the distillery. I can see the bottles behind you. You've got some in front of you too, right? Can we get a little sneak peek at some of these?
We'll start with our flagship. This is the Port Rum. So this rum, a lot of rum. So basically all the rum we've distilled, other than our unaged 151, is still in barrels. So we're so new. There's a lot of different strategies when you start. People will do an unaged product, and some people do a vodka. Some people might do a white whiskey or an unaged rum. For us, we wanted to do something aged, but something still unique. So what we did was we blended styles. So when you're drinking aged rum, there's three different styles. There's British, French, and Spanish. British rum is usually more like funky. They use open air fermentation. So when they say the word funky, that's more of like fruit forward notes. You'll get banana, you'll get pineapple. So we took 6 rums from 4 different countries. And we took British rums, Barbados and Jamaican island rums, Nicaraguan Panamanian, that's the Spanish style. you'll get more sweeter notes like caramel, vanilla, things like that. And we blended styles. So there's really no cross styles out there. And then there's the other style is French, which is rum agricole. You'll sometimes see that spelled R-H-U-M. And that's much more vegetal. That comes from cane juice, where we're using molasses here. And that's what's used in all of these rums. So the 4-port is our award-winning blend, 86 proof. This is our most versatile for the cocktails. As we get into the other rums, this one we still do. I like to sip it on the rocks personally, but this is, for me, makes a great daiquiri. We do it in our Painkiller. It's probably the most versatile for cocktails, and it's really good for traditional tiki cocktails because of the not added sugar. So with tiki drinks, you know, usually you're using orange juice, pineapple juice. All of those things have natural sugars, so it's really nice to use a rum that doesn't have sugar added because then it doesn't taste as syrupy. So with the 4-port, like I said, I just sip it on the rocks. I'm just going to drink it neat here today. And so this one, you'll get, from the barrel, you'll get like some vanilla, some caramel, some creme brulee notes. Even makes a really good old-fashioned. And always when tasting with any spirit, you always want to, whether it's the first of the day or not, it's always going to shock your palate. So to get more notes, you usually do one sip and then kind of like let that, a tiny little, that'll kind of coat your tongue. And then on the second sip, you pick up a lot more of the tasting notes you're looking for. So in addition to distilling, we're actually distilling black rum today. We just finished another run of that. So we've been distilling the entire time since we've been open. But like I said, we love aged products. So we use our 4-port blend that we created, and then we get different barrels in. So one of the other ones for sipping, we took the 4-port, the same exact juice, and we got ruby wine barrels from Portugal, and we did our port cask rum. So this is the 4-port that you just had, finished 9 months in a port cask. Now the port cask, this is our silver label, that gives it a little bit of light smoke, cherry, tobacco notes. This one I'll do, I personally love to sip it neat. If I'm making a cocktail with it, I usually do a stirred cocktail. So I'll do an old fashioned. We do one called the Rich Manhattan, which is just a riff on a classic Manhattan recipe. And the nice thing about these type of rums is we have people come in all the time and they say, oh, I'm a whiskey drinker, I don't drink rum. Well, they're thinking of that rum that I was talking about, the very syrupy, the flavored rums of the world. I'll make them an old fashioned with that, and they don't even know rum could drink like this. You know, it is meant to be sipped, and you'll get very similar notes to a lot of bourbons out there. So that one, same thing, take a sip, that neat, and then I always like to compare. You start with the 4-port, then you taste the port cask, you see how it changed the 4-port flavor, and then we go to our sherry cask. Sherry cask, we actually use Pedro Jimenez barrels, which is a very well-known, unfortunately very expensive wine producer in Spain. But we got a few of those barrels in, and we did the same process, 4-port finished into the sherry cask. And whenever you hear about finishing, no matter what spirits you're talking about, it's usually kind of a 6 to 12 is kind of the like rule of thumb. You just taste along the way. At the end of the day, it's still, you have to just taste the whole time, because longer doesn't always mean better. Sometimes spirits will break down the wood, and then you get too much of the, basically you're getting almost like an ash flavor that you don't want, that's undesirable. So you taste along the way, and you can tell when it's ripe and ready, and when it starts to, you know, if it's about to turn or whatever, and you know it's ready to be pulled. So we knew that the port cask was ready at 9 months. The sherry cask was actually ready at 6 months. So our sherry cask, I'm going to grab a bottle of that just to show you. This is our purple label. This is our latest in the 4-port series. The next one will be a cognac cask. This sherry cask gets a lot more, the sherry barrel brought out a lot more nut flavors, walnut. You'll get a little bit more of like, let me check our tasting notes again, because a lot of more of the tobacco and cinnamon in this one too. So this one, total sipper. I'm really not doing this one in cocktails. If I do make a cocktail with it, it might be an old fashioned, but in general, you can just sip this neat with a cigar. Makes a great pairing with cigars. We've had there's a cigar lounge in town that this is their favorite rum in the area. They use it all the time. So yeah, that's just our kind of our way. As our own spirit ages, we just constantly are getting in different unique barrels and finishing our 4-port blend.
That's fantastic. So you mentioned old fashions. You mentioned neat. You mentioned on the rocks. You know, and a lot of people that hear rum, the first thing they think is rum and Coke. Are there any other like complex type cocktails that you guys make in house, or that you've heard that people like to enjoy your product with?
Yeah, right now, so because of COVID, we've had to adapt and do a lot of cocktail kits to go. So actually our most popular cocktail kit currently is the Painkiller, which is just a very easy drink to make at home, but you still need to get creme de coconut, which a lot of people don't know what that is. You can actually find it at your grocery store. If not, we sell the whole kit together here with our recipe cards. And that's a classic tiki drink: pineapple juice, orange juice, creme de coconut. And then sometimes I'll use the port cask if I want a little bit of that smoked flavor to it. And then a lot of times we just always go with the 4-port. And another cocktail I always do here, which is just very simple, easy to do at home, is just a classic daiquiri. The main reason we like to do daiquiris is because sometimes people think of daiquiris, they actually think of like a slushie or what they're getting out of a drink machine. But a true daiquiri is just rum, simple syrup, lime juice. And it's very easy, shaken, poured neat, poured straight up. And it is one of the easiest drinks, but I love it because it's still booze forward for being a citrusy summer drink. It actually still is a very booze heavy cocktail, but it's very funny because we have people come in all the time and they think that a daiquiri is going to be something very syrupy, and then they don't realize how refreshing it is. And it's also very easy to do riffs on that.
That one sounds really good. Our pool isn't open. I don't know if they're going to open it this summer, but might have to turn the sprinklers on, sit back on the deck, make a couple of those, and imagine.
And then you can just, like that, the daiquiri I like the most because the base is the lime, simple, and rum, but you can make your own riff on it any way you want. Pineapple, substitute pineapple juice for lime, do a Hemingway with grapefruit juice. It's a very easy drink to basically become a little home mixologist.
Well, it's with the different degrees and the barrels of the products that you guys have. I imagine there's just a lot of different options. To be able to concoct something.
We have our tasting room. We actually are looking to open back up in a week. Phase 2, obviously, we've got a lot of limited things, but we built this tasting room. We put a lot of money into it. We built it for people to come and be regulars. So when we first opened, we were wondering, how do you keep, being that we're limited to the 3-ounce max per person by Virginia state law, how do you keep people coming back? Well, what we do is we change the cocktails every month. So that has been great. We've gotten a lot of regulars because we're constantly changing cocktails. It has helped as we've gotten more products because we can make a more versatile menu. And then one thing we do that's really fun, once a month, we do our Bartender Takeover series, which is a local bartender in town will come in. And that day, they make all their own cocktails. They pick a charity. All the tips go to charity. We match the tips, and then we will use those cocktails later in the month and feature them. So it'll say, Justin Ayotte from Saison, these are his 2 featured drinks for this whole month, and he supported this charity. So those have been really fun. Plus, it's been a little bit of a relief for us not to have to come up with all these things on our own.
Yeah, I'm excited about you guys being able to open back up again pretty soon here. For those events that you do and the custom cocktails, where can somebody go to see the schedule of what's coming up?
Yeah, so please follow us on Instagram and Facebook, either or, whichever one you use, but that is where we keep everything updated. That's where we have our menus. That's where we have all of our events that we do. A lot of times we'll do things with bars in town. We're very, very active in the Richmond restaurant community, and then starting to get out to Charlottesville, and a lot of our friends, hopefully down in Roanoke and then up in Northern Virginia. We were kind of on the verge of getting out there, and then COVID hit and kind of pigeonholed us like everybody else. But yeah, please give us a follow. We have recipes on our website as well. There are a lot of simple ones. I think whenever you see the new cocktails, those are going to be more on our social media. So yeah, give us a follow. And then, like I said, we were talking about the delivery process. Now it is legal to ship. If you're not in Richmond within a 50-mile radius, we will deliver to you. But if you're out in the middle of nowhere, we shipped some bottles to Wytheville the other day. You can get that's one good thing to come out of COVID is now all these great Virginia distilleries are available to be shipped to your door.
Yeah, that really has been, I think, a lifesaver for you guys.
Yeah, it's been fun to keep us afloat. Still getting our name out there is difficult, but especially for us because we're so new, we're not in a lot of stores other than Richmond and Charlottesville. So we really needed that to get our name out there.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you all's, have you started thinking or hearing anything from ABC? Is this a process you think they're going to extend beyond?
Yeah, this is permanent. ABC's actually starting to do their own shipping as well. Or I don't know if they're shipping, but I know they're going to do some delivery program. But I know they're not, luckily for us, because they're still getting paid by us. When we sell a bottle, it's not like they're not getting the same money they get. So at the end of the day, it really has helped everybody. So like I said, it is kind of a silver lining, if there is one, to this whole pandemic. It has been something that we know. Our hope is that when we open back up, we'll get our regulars that we normally had. And then in addition to that, we'll get these new people that have found out about us through shipping at way outside of Richmond and things like that.
That's cool. So if somebody did want to, see more about your products or see about getting those shipped to you, can they go directly to your website to place an order?
Spirits.com/shop. And then when you go on there, you can look at all of our cocktail kits. We've got a mojito kit. We use a local syrup maker here. She makes us a mint syrup for our mojito. We've got a dark and stormy kit, gin and tonic kit, painkiller kit, and a Bloody Mary. The Bloody Mary mix we use is a Virginia guy. His mix is fantastic. And with that mix, we do our gin, which, I'll get to the gin whenever you are ready.
Yeah, let's hear about it, man. Let's do it. Okay,
great. So with our gin, basically there's 10 botanicals in this gin. And the most unique to our gin is Szechuan pepper and Oolong Tea. A lot of gins out there, sometimes you'll hear someone, they'll say, oh, I don't like gin, or I had a bad experience with gin. Usually those people are talking about a London dry style. So it's very juniper forward. All gin has juniper in it. Other than that, you can come up with all your own botanicals. So juniper is the base for all gin, the only commonality. But the London dry style was very heavy juniper. Still a delicious style if you like all types, but when people think of some people say it tastes like a Christmas tree or like biting into a pine cone, that's London dry style. And then there's the other style, the new modern gins are very citrus forward. So that might be like Amalfi from Italy, which is delicious, but very lemon forward, or New Amsterdam is very lime forward. And then you have people that are kind of like, well, I don't really want that either. Our gin is kind of a bridge in between both. We are much more of like the Asian vein of like a Roku or Drumshambo. Ours is much more of an earthy gin. So we distill it very similar to a London dry style, but what we do is we take down almost all the coriander, about 75% of the coriander in the traditional London dry style. We replace that with Oolong Tea. And that tea gives it a much more of an earthy feel, and the Szechuan pepper is still very forward. Now there is still, if you like citrus gins, there's still lemon peel in this, lemongrass for another earthy note. It's just kind of a nice bridge between the classic and the modern.
The Oolong Tea edition, where did that come from?
Well, Barry, our head distiller, who did just walk by to pick up one of our delivery orders, and we'll probably say hello to him later. That was his baby. He's been working on this recipe for over 2.5 years. There's a lot of trial and error. I mean, gin is very tricky. There's a lot of chemistry, and with the botanicals, they all do different things at different temperatures, at different alcohol proofs, and each botanical is its own thing. So you have to treat it differently. Like the tea, of course, is very delicate, whereas the lemon peel, we can put that in a very high proof before we put it through our still. So Barry really loved a lot of the Asian styles, and he wanted to figure out a way, because one, there's so many gins out there, so many delicious ones, that you really, in the gin world, you have to be unique. You can't just be like, we're a version of this, but maybe not as good, or we're kind of like that, but they're executing it better. Because being a craft distiller, there's a lot of really popular gins that are still very impressive. I mean, the Hendrixes of the world are successful for a reason. It's very consistent, which is always hard to do. Every batch could be different. And two, having those unique botanicals, like for them, it was cucumber. Well, we don't really know anybody out there doing the Oolong Tea. We really loved it. We tried a bunch of different variations. And the neatest thing too about the Szechuan peppers, it comes across much more like a black peppercorn. So you'll get like more of like a Szechuan on the front end, and then the earthiness of the tea is kind of the finish.
Yeah, well, I know it's been very popular. So for the festivals and events that we've held that you guys have been at, and I think you've attended too, in a couple of years that we've been in business as well. And we had to reschedule the one, we had a Norfolk event at the MacArthur Center in April that we've had to reschedule to hopefully September. It's gonna be September 12th for anyone listening. Please come out and check that out if we can hold it. That's right. But I think the Oolong Tea gin, that's when it just disappears first, both with sampling, and people buy those up almost immediately.
It's a huge hit. I mean, our staple, our flagships are meant to be the 4-port and the gin, and already the 4-port is doing great. It's been out since we started, but the gin sales numbers, just as gin in general across the world is more popular, it's already catching up to the forecourt and almost neck and neck, which has been a hit. So I think it just shows it's a compliment to Barry and how good his recipe is.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I've been fortunate enough, I've been able to sample everything that you guys have. And I honestly can't say this about everyone, but every single one of your products, I mean, it's clear that you guys put a lot of time into them. You make sure it's quality. You make sure that there's a clear difference between them. So really some incredible products. Well, are you able to, we can't be there with you in person tonight right now, but you're there. Are you able to take us on a little tour of the tasting room and the distillery?
For sure. I do want to say, in regards to your comment, other than thank you, I give Barry, the head distiller, and Brad, his brother, they're both so obsessed with being like almost perfectionists to the point that it's frustrating me at times. But then by the end of the day, when they come out with a product like this, I know why they took so long. They never let something get bottled until it's exactly the way they want it. So thank you for that. It has been, we do a lot of things very slowly here, as in we take time. So when you go to see our still, which I'll show you, our still is a cognac still. So it came from France, and it actually did make cognac at one point. But the biggest thing with the still for how it takes so long is a direct fire. So most stills are steam or coils, which is great, and they're very versatile, and they're much easier to work with. This thing's a little bit cantankerous, but it takes, and sometimes one of our distillation runs will take 12 hours, which is very long. But at the end of the day, the direct fire really creates a lot more flavor, quality, and character in our spirits. So we'll head back there. This is our tasting room where we do our cocktails. And then this still, there's only 5 others in the US, 4 of which are all in wine country. So the still is very geared towards making great products. So like I said, we did the brandy. That's really what it's there for. So behind me, you'll see the still. And then over here is where everything comes out. So directly here, right in front of you, you will see a computer. Now back in the day, obviously the computer wasn't there. There was just the open flame, which is still behind this computer right now. Back in the day, that would be, you'd have to constantly watch it. We do monitor it here, but we just check maybe every hour. And we just check the computer to see the temperatures and things like that, make sure the gooseneck up here is correct. But basically, it's still a very, very old style. So a lot of stills, a lot of the people we know, our friends here in Virginia, they're using hybrid stills, which is part pot, part column. And then like our neighbors over at Cirrus Vodka, they're using a column still. We couldn't even make vodka if we wanted to here. There's plenty of good vodkas out there, but that type of still is, when you see those portholes in a column still, it's basically, they say, pulling out impurities is what they say when you're making vodka. So their goal is grain neutral, whereas our goal here is to preserve flavor. So the direct fire along with the pot still, and then eventually it'll come out over here. And we always joke that this thing is French because these very expensive brass handles here do absolutely nothing. Just meant to, that's how French it is. It's really, we always joke that it's just expensive and doesn't have any purpose. But we actually did do a run today, and so it'll come out, and then we have the heads, hearts, and tails, and the hearts come out here. We did our Blackstrap came out, and the Blackstrap molasses is very difficult to work with because it's basically what's left over, and there's still a lot of like plant material in Blackstrap, but it creates a really nice flavor, a really nice viscosity. But we found out, of course, it takes a little bit tougher to ferment. We're also doing all different types of molasses. So we've got regular, we get all of our molasses from Guatemala, and then we have our regular molasses, and then we have our Blackstrap, full Blackstrap, and then we have a blend about 70-30. So all those will be varieties that'll come out in the next few years. And then when like I was talking about earlier, all spirits come out clear no matter what you're making. So that molasses is very thick. It's black, it's dark, it's even thicker than maple syrup when it goes. Then we put it in our fermentation tanks over here, and it'll sit in that tank, and we feed it yeast. So sugar eats yeast and becomes alcohol. So eventually it'll become almost like a wine, and you'll taste it along the way, and it'll be at about 7 to 9% alcohol. That's what we did same thing with the brandy. And then you put it through the still once, and it's at about 35%. And by the time it comes through our still on our second distillation, then it's at about, 150 to 160 proof alcohol. So then what we'll do, we'll take that, we'll put them in some of our barrels. Like this really old barrel back here is about 40 years old. That's a cognac barrel. That's got some of our four ports sitting in it right now. And then, like I said, it's very humid back here. That's one benefit of aging in Virginia is the humidity. Because hot is not necessarily better for aging. Humid is really what you want. Because hot actually makes more of the alcohol evaporate, whereas the humidity just makes it expand and contract while maintaining moisture on the barrel.
How often are you able to reuse those barrels? What's the lifespan of those?
Yeah, so most barrels, when you're talking about aging, a lot of products, you'll get a used bourbon barrel when you're starting with rum. There's a couple reasons for it. One is their used bourbon is very easy to get and affordable in Virginia and in all the United States. I mean, you get them from Heaven Hill and Kentucky, all places like that. And then there's other fun things you can do. So, there's different, as with anything, theories on how much you want to reuse a barrel. Usually we'll take one of ours and we'll either give it to, like right now we actually are working with this distillery and we used our rum, we aged in an oak barrel, and then now they're putting their whiskey in the barrel. So it's basically had port wine in it, Virago rum, and now their whiskey. So there's a lot of different things you can do. But the beauty of it is the barrel does so much magic. So it's all about getting like a high quality wine. That's why we chose Pedro Jimenez. It's a really nice region in Spain, and getting that in there and just basically you get to taste. I mean, you have a general idea of what you want, but at the end of the day, you don't know until it's actually done what it's going to really taste like.
Do you have to do anything to the product when it's in those barrels? Do you ever have to mix it up at all or shake it or turn them, or do they just sit?
We don't do that. There are like theories behind that as well. We've kept ours, as long as you keep it full where there's not, you have to have a little bit of head space, but as long as it's full so it's still moist. And it also, the other thing is it has to stay expanded. So if it shrinks in the winter or if it dries out, if you leave it, so for example, when those barrels come in from wherever we've gotten them, Spain, Portugal, they come in wet and you want to fill them as soon as possible. Because if they dry up, one, the flavor changes a little bit more than the target, and two, they actually will leak. Because when it's wet, it expands and that's why it's tightly sealed.
Oh, that's pretty neat. So how do you guys, once it's ready, how do you extract the rum or whatever it may be?
And we're actually changing about how high proof we want to do it. So a lot of the barrels we've filled with very high proof rum, and now we're thinking we might, basically based on our latitude and a lot of the more research we've done, we might proof it down to about like 130, 125-ish. But anyways, at the end of the day, when you pull it out, you also proof down. So whenever you hear about proofing down, all it is just pure. We just have a very nice, expensive water filter, and you have to do it very slowly. You can't shock the system. So if you just poured a ton of water in it, there'd be a chemical reaction, things would separate, and it would pretty much ruin it. So you just do a very slow drip of purified water, and then you measure along the way until you get to the proof you're looking for. So for us, it's 86 proof, and then for some of our sippers, we'll proof down to 80.
And you guys do all that on site as well, the water mixing and the bottling?
Oh yeah, all of that's done here. Bottling, boxing. Basically, the only thing that we've sourced was our original blend, and then everything else is done here. Like that still that I just showed you all earlier is very unique to do gin on, and I think that's also what gives us such a unique character to that gin.
Man, that's something else. So you mentioned that your distiller was there. I haven't seen him. Is he hiding? Is he sampling?
You want to come over for a second? So Brad is actually also, in addition to all the rum distilling, Brad is one of the ones that does a lot of the liqueurs. So we've had a few liqueurs Brad's done. This is Brad Hannaberg.
Hey, how are you?
Sorry, the lighting's a little bad there.
Sorry, it's probably better for them that they can see me.
And Brad did a coffee liqueur that was really popular and sold out right away. We've done 2 runs of that, and we're doing another one. And then, Brad, you want to talk about your other liqueurs you have on tap?
Yeah, we're messing with, so we have an herbal side. So we do a rum side. We have 3 prongs to the stool: rum, brandies, and then herbal. And the herbal obviously includes gin, but it also includes absinthe and herb saint and chocolate liqueur and coffee liqueur. And we're working on a kummel, which is, a Scandinavian liqueur. We've played with the cherry liqueur. So we're just figuring out exactly where we want to go on that side.
Can you tell us a little bit more about the absinthe? I know there's a lot of myths and legends out there about absinthe. Could you tell us a little bit about that and how that process works for you?
Yeah, I mean, so basically it's a distillate of fennel, wormwood, and green anise. And the problem back in the day, the reason it came about, it was originally a Swiss drink. And in the late 1800s, the French wine industry went through a blight. And as a result, French wines were relatively unavailable, and those that were very expensive. So the French drinking culture, this is at the age of enlightenment with the French intellectuals, they went out and started drinking absinthe, right? And the reality of the situation is there's a chemical called thujone that is basically from the wormwood. And at really high levels of it, it could be toxic. But it really never gets that high. But what happened is that the French were drinking a lot of absinthe, and then the grapevines came back in, and the French wine industry wanted to basically get people to come back to the wine area of France, and so as a result, they started bad-mouthing absinthe. And it just so happened that there were some relatively horrible stories of people getting intoxicated on not only absinthe, but a lot of other alcohols, and doing some really bad stuff, killing their family and that type of stuff, which was all that the wine industry needed to do to start spinning this whole image that absinthe makes you go crazy. And if you look at all the equipment that they use to make a glass of absinthe, it looks very almost drug den-ish is a bad way of saying it, but it looks very like it's a routine, right? And it was an easy story to try and get people to believe that. And as a result, many governments started banning it left and right, and it took about 100 years to come back here in the U.S. Although there's an argument that it was never technically outlawed. But now the government basically says as long as you have, I think it's 10 parts per million. Okay. Of thujone, then it's deemed to be thujone free. But in all honesty, any of the old recipes that they've gone back and analyzed, they all meet the current standards. So it's not that big of a deal. But
that's something else. So you got a Winnebago out back that you use to cook all that up?
Yeah, I've got a friend that he helps me out. We go for the blue stuff.
I like that. Now, is that something you're working on now? Is that a product that's available? Is that something that's coming?
It is coming. I just got, so here, so in my day job, I'm a geeky lawyer. And I knew that the TTB, which is our regulating agency, would have not problems with, but they would be a little bit extra cautious about absinthe. And they actually make you send in samples so they can do a test on the thujone levels before they approve your formula. With COVID here, they've shut that lab down. So God knows when they'd open it back up again. So what I did was I did an herb saint. I can't call it herb saint. It's a name of somebody's product, but basically it's absinthe without the wormwood, and it comes across similar, although there's a slightly less bitterness. But it still luches just like the absinthe does, and you still color it with the same types. So you get that green fairy look to it, but without necessarily having the bitterness of the wormwood. And
that's pretty cool.
That ABC or TTB has approved our formula for that, so that'll be coming out in the.
And Brian, we have the gin you love so much. This is Barry. That was his baby.
Hey, how are you, sir?
And we also
have
Barry.
How are you?
Our hibiscus gin is going to be our newest release. So it's a hibiscus version of the gin we talked about earlier.
So what's the process? How do you come up with a new product? I know a lot goes behind it. You got to source everything out, and then you got to figure out the marketability of it. But just conceptually,
for any new
how do you come up with a new product?
Gin in particular, or general ideas?
Well, start with the gin, but really just generally.
So we have 3 product categories, kind of verticals that we play in. We've isolated. So when we started, we decided we wanted to focus on what we consider to be forgotten or misunderstood spirits, and those categories are rum, fruit brandies, and herbal spirits.
Did I cover it correctly? See, he was testing me.
That's right. You got it. Yeah. Yeah. Who knew there was going to be a test at the end?
Hibiscus. We just bottled hibiscus gin.
Oh, nice. You got those hand numbered? What number is that right there?
Which one is this? No, we didn't number. We probably should do that. That's a good idea.
You could have just made something up for me there, but that's okay.
there's only 200 bottles, so it'll go pretty. I think it's going to go fast, just especially because of the beautiful color. Same base as the gin that we were talking about earlier, and just hibiscus and orange peel added, so it's got a little bit of sweetness too.
So are those going to be available in ABC stores? Or are those going to be available for delivery and shipment?
Just, directly, like the website we talked about earlier, just from us directly. Come to the distillery, go to our website, we'll deliver it to your house.
All right, and that's viragospirits.com, right?
Exactly.
And the earlier question before on products, so there's products that we sell that we know are going to be mass produced. So the gin, Port Rum, some of our cask finishes, we know that are going to be popular. And then we have another product category that we call our experimental series. And that's some of what Brad's talking about, where we just have fun. We do it on a test still. We'll make anywhere from 50 to 200 bottles of it. We'll sell it only in our tasting room and see how the public reacts to it. And if it takes off, people like it, we'll go ahead and scale up and start selling more broadly. But it allows us to be creative, to think outside the box without having a whole lot of financial commitment to it.
That's amazing. So if you let's say you make 200 bottles comes out of the barrel for a new product. Yeah. Are you all selling and distributing all 200, or are you doing 199 and somebody's got a storeroom somewhere with a little historical breakdown?
For sure, yeah. We were just testing some today. If you caught us earlier,
yeah. Testing. I like that. You guys are testing. That's fantastic.
Quality control is big here.
That's amazing. Well, very cool. Well, I appreciate it. Thanks for the insight there. You guys, I mean, really just an amazing line of products, and incredible to see some of the things that you've got coming up. The Absinthe, I'm very excited to see about. I first discovered that a couple of years ago, and it's something that I like to bring a couple little bottles or sips worth if I go on a camping trip or a hike or something.
Oh, nice.
Nothing better around a campfire.
Yeah, we'll definitely like it. We've been, Brad's done, like I was telling you earlier, I said these two brothers don't put anything in the bottle until they think it's perfect, and they still don't think it's perfect afterwards. But we've had a bunch of versions of this Absinthe, so I think it's killer. I love it.
Absinthe is really good.
Yeah.
We're anal retentive, so we're always looking to improve, and we have no intention of ever putting anything out that we don't stand behind. So the Absinthe is really, really nice product.
That's amazing. Yeah, and it shows. Hopefully I'll be able to, as I mentioned before, hopefully I'll have you guys back at a festival sometime soon. It will be eventually. We're eventually going to get back up and running. So we'll have you guys there, give everyone a chance to come out and try some of these products, and then visit and see some of your others. But hopefully in the meantime, people take an opportunity to visit you guys on Facebook, visit you on your website at ViragoSpirits.com. And as you mentioned, your tasting room is going to be opening back up again soon. You guys are in the Scotts Edition area of Richmond, Virginia. So I hope people will come and visit you. I'm Brian Sullivan with River City Festivals. Please make sure to follow us on Facebook and YouTube at River City Festivals. And Luke, I'll give you the last word.
I just want to say we really miss everybody. Looking forward to coming out to these festivals. We miss our friends in the Virginia Distillers Association, trying all their new products, and especially all the regulars we had here. So look, if you buy a bottle from Virago, it's coming from, we made the box, we labeled the box, and then I'll deliver it to your doorstep. So really, it's very personal, and we really appreciate all the people in Virginia supporting us in the first 2 years. Thank you, guys.